yeah.
Of course I finished the wine. What?
The fuck?
I'm trying to get lit while reading this lit. Okay.
Hey, Lit Set, it's Nikia.
And Jasmine.
And this is Black Girl Lit. Oh, yeah, y'all. And by the time we post this episode, this would have already happened. But happy birthday to Jazz, hitting that dirty 30. And I meant to say that in the last episode, but Jazz is turning 30. But I just wanted to give her a shout out up here. So, y'all go and spam her Instagram at Lenny Nora and wish her a happy birthday.
Oh, thank you so much, boo. This is special. I feel like I just got a shout out on the radio.
All right, y'all. We are here with season 2, episode 2 of Black Girl Lit, the podcast. Okay, don't get it twisted. If this is your first time joining us, we did have a video series on my YouTube channel with our Black Girl Lit series. But if you don't know, Jazz decided to move to Charlotte, and then I wanted to up and move to Fredericksburg. So Jazz came up with the brilliant idea to turn it into a podcast, and I am the executor. So I was like, boom, let's get it done. And here we are already at episode 2.
Episode 2, okay? And that ties into the theme of the book.
Okay, Jazz, I see what you're doing. All right, this week we are back with the novel Piecing Me Together by Renee Watson. This is my pick, and of course it is YA.
Another YA book for y'all.
But I think this is the only one in season 2. This is the only YA lit.
Is it? I thought Queenie was a YA book.
No.
I just automatically assumed that all of your books except for the au pair were YA books.
No. So we've read Renee Watson before, and it was actually Jazz's pick, a YA book called This Side of Home. So
I didn't know it was YA when I picked it.
So you can check out our review of that book on my YouTube channel. And so I'm going to give you a little synopsis of Renee Watson. She is a New York Times bestselling author, educator, and activist. This novel that we've read has received a Coretta Scott King Award and a Newbery Honor. Her poetry and fiction often center around the lived experience of Black girls and women and explore themes of home, identity, and the intersection of race and gender. Renee has worked as a writer in residence for over 20 years, teaching creative writing and theater in public schools and community centers throughout the nation. She currently teaches courses on writing for children for the Solstice MFA program at Pine Manor College. She grew up in Portland, Oregon, and she currently lives in New York City. All right, now that we've talked about the author, Jazz is going to flourish and thrive and just be the greatness that is her, and give you the book synopsis, and she's going to synopsisize. That is our word. It's patent pending in all U.S. states.
Thank you. So I'm going to synopsisize Piecing Me Together by Renee Watson. So the story is told by young Jade. Jade is I want to say, high school junior, and she is going to a private school in Portland. And the story is basically kind of like a coming of age story for Jade as she tries to figure out what's going on within her community, within her world, while going to the school where, she unfortunately is one of few Black people. And one of the things kind of keeping her grounded is this possible opportunity for her to go study abroad in hopefully Costa Rica or some Spanish-speaking country. And the story is generally just her kind of getting involved and going through school. She also gets involved in a mentorship program and how that affects her life, as well as her relationship with her friends, family, and mother. So it's, again, just a coming of age story for young Jade. And that is me synopsisizing, piecing me together.
All right, y'all. Now we are going to get into the next segment where we discuss our initial reactions to the novel. I was in this novel. Piecing Me Together, I think I text Jazz in like maybe a week and a half later, and I was like, I finished the book, Jazz. I was just in it. Like, I was staying up late to read it. It was like, if you listen to This Side of Home, I love Renee Watson's writing. It's like poetry, but it's not even poetry. It just reads so well, and it just like engrosses you in the story. She creates a lot of imagery. It's very vivid. It was just, Renee, bellissimo. It was just everything. And I just think it's so dope. Like it said in her author bio, she is all about writing about Black women and girls and their experiences. And I was with Jade. I was there. And I felt Jade. And that was my initial reaction. Like I was with Jade.
So my first reaction when I first read the book, I started reading the book, and I wrote this down as a note, and I was like, does this take place in the same universe as This Side of Home? Because I felt like I thought as I was started reading the book, I thought we were gonna run into some of the characters from This Side of Home. We didn't, but I was like, oh my God, this could be cool. But my initial reaction was I love that it kind of just read like a story, like just a quick glimpse into Jade's life. I felt like some books, there's definitely a big plot, there's a climax kind of thing. Not saying that this book didn't have it, but it was just kind of like a really easy to read story. Like I'm just kind of opening a window and peering into Jade's life, and I like that aspect of it. I definitely think the book was very well written. Like you said, I read the book really quickly. I think I had the book finished when it was able to really start reading it. I think I finished the book in like a day and a half. So it was really, really good. I definitely enjoyed it. So, one of my reactions, I don't know if we talk about this later, but I love the incorporation of Spanish in the book. I thought that was dope and really different.
Yo hablo español un poquito.
Más o menos, más o menos.
And I like to say, I think I have a good Spanish speaking accent because I can roll my R's, unlike some people. Now on to our next segment. We're going to discuss some major scenes and topics. I'm going to list them all for you, and then we'll just go back and discuss them individually. We're going to talk about perception versus reality, poverty versus privilege, self-confidence and advocating for yourself. Then we're also going to talk about Jade's art. And then I want to also add in there talking about identity, because that is just one of Renee Watson's overarching themes throughout all of her novels. And I think some major scenes we want to talk about, Jazz didn't give me any major scenes, but her interactions with her mentorship program and her mentor, and then her getting stopped in the store. Getting profiled in the store, and then also that young Black girl getting killed.
Yes,
that is something we should talk about.
I agree.
All right, so we'll talk about the major topics first. They kind of tie in together. Perception versus reality. Jazz, this was something that you brought up. So
yes. So several times throughout the book, Jade or even her friends would perceive a certain situation as being one way. For example, for I believe it was Thanksgiving. No, maybe not Thanksgiving. I think actually just family dinner. Jade was asked to come to dinner with her mentor, and she really perceived her mentor to really have her shit together, to really be really put together. But then when she really started looking at the situation, her mentor did not have shit together at all. She was dealing with some fuckboy. She was really just trying to do a lot of her things in her life just to please her parents and make herself look good in her parents' eyes instead of actually just living for herself. And the same thing kind of ties into her relationship with her friend Sam, who happened to be a white girl that lived in a different neighborhood. She assumed because Sam lived in, I believe, North Portland. I can't remember exactly where, but she lived in a certain area of Portland that she was going to be affluent, when actually, no, Sam was just a little bit above the poverty line. So it was very interesting to see how Jade would kind of create a scenario or a situation or a perception in her mind that was completely different than what was actually the case. And it took several instances for her to kind of like, let me just look at what's really happening here and not just what my own assumptions are.
Yeah. To go with perception and reality, I do have a quote from Jade. It's a little long, but I think it's a good quote. It goes exactly with it. The quote says, "Lots of people can't find beauty in my neighborhood, but I can. Ever since elementary school, I've been making beauty out of everyday things. Candy wrappers, pages of newspaper, receipts, rip-outs from magazines. I cut and tear, arrange and rearrange, and glue them down, morphing them into something no one else thought they could be. Like me, I'm ordinary too. The only thing fancy about me is my name, Jade, but I am not precious like the gem. There's nothing exquisite about my life. It's mine though, so I'm going to make something out of it." And I think me and Jazz, I think we discussed this when we were talking before we started recording about how Jade discusses like how people see her side of the neighborhood where she's from as like poor and impoverished. And then you go to the rich side or the white side of town and you see more affluent areas and you see these nice gardens and you see these like nice lawns. But it's all about perception, because to tie in what Jazz said, when she went with her mentor, she had this nice house, but Jade could see the underlying issues in her family. Like her mentor didn't have all her stuff together. Her family, her mentor's family was like, you don't have a job, like, what are you doing? And Jade kind of felt like her mentor was using her as like, here, mom, look at me, I'm doing this and I'm trying to do well. When Jade was like, look at all this good that's coming out of my community. Like, her best friend goes to a school that's in her neighborhood, but her best friend is brilliant. Like, she's a writer, she's a poet. So good things can come out of what people look at as trash in the community. And that also relates to Jade's art. She's a collagist, I think is what they call it. And she just, like I mentioned in that quote, she takes pieces of pictures and just everyday items and puts them together to turn them into something else. So Jade comes to, I feel like she realizes that things don't have to be what they look like.
That was so good. No, I agree completely. I mean, definitely. And I think sometimes, even as an adult, you have to kind of step back and look at certain things in perspective. Like the analogy or the allusion that she did to Lenora. I was going to call her Lenora, but that's my middle name. Lenora. But yeah, so Lily, as she calls her, and how Lily goes to a public school and Jade goes to this private school, but Jade feels that Lily is learning so much more than her and has so much different education things that are being brought to her. She's learning so much about Black culture, and Jade feels like she's being deprived of that. So it's all about perception, because anyone looking from the outside looking in would think that Jade, of course, Jade has to be getting the better education because she's going to this private school, whereas Lily is someone who's actually getting a really good education that is going to be really helpful for her and her future in her life.
Oh, I think what we're just talking about ties into the next topic. We were talking about poverty and privilege.
Yes. Okay. Yes. So that was my topic. Poverty and privilege definitely is addressed. So Jade definitely lives like right at below the poverty line, to the point where her asking her mom to get her some mint ice cream may be something that is not able to be done or outside of their budget. So Jade is able to go to the school for because she's on a scholarship, but then because Jade goes to the school that's a private school, she's encountering a lot of privileged students who are simply there because their parents can afford it, not because they're there to get the best education, which I mean, the parents do want them to get the best education, but they're just simply there because their parents can afford it. And that is presented to her several times. Like the kids will ask her to go out for lunch and go to some place to get some burgers, and Jade just can't do that because she doesn't have the disposable income to do so. And that was really sad.
To tie into that, like she would whenever she would go places, she would always bring like plastic bags or containers with her to take food. Like sometimes the child wouldn't eat. And like this brilliant person, it reminds me like of a quote that I've heard before where people say, you never know, the cure to cancer or the cure to something or some big idea may be locked inside this child that is from an impoverished area. But because they don't have the opportunities that the privileged folks have, we're never going to have that solution.
No, that's deep. Stop.
All right, go ahead. I'm gonna let you continue. Go ahead.
But yes, and so basically, and even when she was dealing with her mentor and her mentor relationship, and she went to her house and saw how big her house was, you definitely can kind of see the differences between the poverty and the privilege. Or even in her relationship with her friend Sam, who's not that much more above the poverty line than Jade is, but Jade still sees her as having more privilege and more accessibility to things than she does herself. So that was definitely a big piece, because I think Jade also kind of saw herself as just being a poor Black girl, which that's far from the truth and not who she is at all.
Yes. So our next topic is like you don't have her shit together. Our next topic is self-confidence and advocating for yourself. So this is another one that Jazz dropped on us. So do you want to start with this one?
Oh, most definitely. So why I said advocating for herself is because Jade has a hard time speaking up for herself, or speaking up when she feels slighted or when she's not happy about a situation. So whether it's her getting into an argument or disagreement with her friend Sam after she encounters a really difficult situation, which Nakia will touch on in major scenes. But also there's a study abroad program where Jade felt like she was going to be a shoo-in for it, and when she finds out that she doesn't get it, she doesn't really speak up to figure out why she doesn't until extremely late in the book. So I definitely think it's important for you to kind of speak up and advocate for yourself, especially when you feel like you deserve certain situations and certain benefits and privileges, whatever the case may be, and not hiding behind, I don't want to speak up because this, that, and the third. You should definitely advocate for yourself as much as possible.
Yes, to speak on that, I feel like a lot of times as Black women, why we don't speak up for ourselves is because all of these negative stereotypes that are placed on us, because you don't want to be the angry Black woman. You don't want to be the loud one, the ghetto one, or the demanding one to seem like you're trying to take over and be in charge. But you know what? I've actually embraced those stereotypes. Like,
Look, me
it
too.
is what it is. I have to get what I have to get, because I was actually telling my students the other day that my first grade teacher, I remember her telling me as a first grader, y'all, that, okay, Nakia, you need to be a leader, and you're going to be a leader. I'm going to push you harder than I push my other students, because you are a young Black girl and you have to work twice as hard, if not harder, than these other students who are a different color than you. And that's been instilled. And I was in first grade, y'all, when she told me this. And so that has stuck with me. And I've had some issues even with advocating for myself. But like, as I'm getting older, I'm just like, you know what? I'm remembering what Miss White said and carrying that with me, because I can't be passive, or else things are just going to fly past me and nothing's going to get done and nothing's going to change. So you may want to categorize me as an angry Black woman, as loud, as demanding, but I'm going to get what I need and get it done. And eventually you're going to see, oh, she's just about her business. It's not because she's an angry Black woman or anything like that.
And no, that's very true. Like, so for me, I work in a very extremely white male dominated industry. So very often I'm really hesitant about sometimes when I want to speak up. At least when I first started in my career, like I was like, no, I don't want to speak up because I don't want to come off that way. But at this point, I'm like, no, you're not gonna mess with me and my coin and my job. I'm here to do a job, and if that means I have to come off to you as being an angry Black woman or being a bitch, then that's just so be it. That's just who I'm going to be. But at the same time, the job is getting done. Things are running smoothly, and I'm doing what needs to be done. I don't really care. And I think another piece, an important part about like your perception of yourself and advocating for yourself, is getting to a place where you don't care what other people think about you. You don't care what other people's perceptions of you are, because you know who you are. As long as the people close to me know who I truly am, because they do. But people out at work, I don't care what y'all think about me, because I'm here to do a job. We're not supposed to be friends anyway.
Absolutely.
My company not paying me for the number of friends I get.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I think that was really important, especially being a woman of color. You're always so mindful about code switching and not being a angry Black woman, and sometimes
censoring yourself.
Right. And sometimes you just need to put that stuff to the side and just do what you need to do to get your message across, especially when you're having interpersonal relationships. If you have a coworker or a friend who's not giving you the same thing that you need to make sure that you speak up and advocate for yourself so that you're getting what you need, and it's not something where you're just constantly making deposits to someone else and without getting any withdrawals.
Amen. Come on, deposits and withdrawals. Yes, gems dropping up here. Dropping gems. Are y'all listening? This is not only Black Girl Lit. We giving y'all a little bit of Black Girl therapy, okay?
We are not licensed. So do not try to sue us for any therapy, that air quotes therapy, that you feel like you received, because I don't got no money, okay?
Jazz and her disclaimers. Amen. Our last topic was something that I had, and it was identity. And I feel like this just ties into Jade's overall story, because there's a quote. Oh, there was a quote where she says, she's referring to her mother. She says, "I'm her only child, her only hope of remaking herself." So Jade has this burden on her back to be successful for her mother, to find a way out of this impoverished community and find her way out of this situation, and not repeat the cycle that her mom has. She's not throwing any shade to her mother. She's appreciative of everything her mother has done. And I can see that. And I'm appreciative of what her mother has done. Her mother is just pushing her so hard because her mother doesn't want her to live the same lifestyle that she has. Everybody's parents want them to do better than they have. And I feel like that should be every child's goal. And most children have that same goal. I want to be better than my parents. But Jade just has this burden on her shoulders to be better. But she's kind of torn. And it's kind of like double consciousness that W.E.B. Du Bois talks about, that Black people have in America. Like, you have this two-ness about you. Like, you are Black, but then you're also in America. And it's like a balance of being who you are. So Jade, and her double consciousness, is being torn between, I'm from this neighborhood, from the hood, people would call it, but then I go to this private school with people who are well off and well to do, and people don't really know the situation. So she has to balance this. And then she also has to think about, I have to be successful for my mom, you know, to do better than she did and to get out of this community and to be successful. So she's just grappling with all these things. And to kind of tie it into the major scenes is Jade's art. Again, I've talked about this, like she rips things, she glues them together, she makes mosaics, she makes collages of different items and puts them together. And I feel like, you know, it ties in with the title. Jade, through all of the facets of her life, through everything that she is trying to piece herself together to find out who she really is and be herself no matter what environment that she's in.
Okay, girl, come on now. Yes, piecing me together. Okay, so go into that which we're talking about, and how she's kind of like stuck between those two sides. Which shout out to you for quoting some W.E.B. Du Bois. Go ahead, girl. That's why you an educated Black woman. Anyways, so I have two quotes. So first quote is from Jade, and she's like, "How am I someone's answered prayer, but also someone's deferred dream?" And that ties into her relationship with her parents, because her father saw her as a blessing, and her mother, because she had her young, she saw her as some possibly deferring her dream. So Jade is
that double consciousness right there too.
Exactly. Because Jade is like, yes, I'm an answered prayer, but I'm also my mama's deferred dream, and I'm stuck between that. So, quote there. Other quote that I had, and this goes into the piecing me together part. And the quote goes, "And this makes me wonder if a Black girl's life is only about being stitched together and coming undone, being stitched together and coming undone." And that is also very true, because you're constantly trying to find yourself as you're going through life, especially as a person or woman of color, because society is telling you so many different things. So being able to kind of like constantly evolve and change yourself is a part of piecing yourself together, I believe.
Right. It's like the evolution. And this reminds me of, I read The Evolution of Bertie Randolph by Brandy Colbert. I was on a podcast called YA Cafe.
Shout out to YA Cafe.
Yes. And I read that novel, and Brandy in that novel, she makes actually her boyfriend makes this quote saying that her life is like a puzzle. And Bertie realizes, yeah, my life is like a puzzle, but I have all the pieces and they're mine. And I feel like I was reading this at the same time I was reading Piecing Me Together. So that's why I like kind of get the storylines confused, because they go together so well. It's like Bertie felt like her life was a puzzle, and Jade has all these pieces that she's now taking control of and making it what she wants to be, instead of trying to be what other people perceive her to be. So yeah, I just thought I would add that in there.
No, that's good. And I like the fact that she said that she's a puzzle, but she has all the pieces. That's deep.
Yeah.
To realize that you are the person that holds all the power to your life, well, besides Jesus, amen, thank you, Jesus. But to know that you have the pieces to put yourself together and you don't need nobody else's input, that's deep.
Jazz, you better preach in this sanctified church on today.
Thank you. Coming to the Black Girl List Sanctuary.
We are dropping gems in here, okay? Oh, the scene. So we have a couple major scenes. So first of all, Jade being profiled. So
major scene alert.
What was her friend's name?
Sam.
So her and Sam, who is white, went to a store, and one of the associates in the store was following Jade around and basically accusing her of stealing. And after that, Jade tells Sam what happens, and Sam just brushes her off. So Jazz, how did you feel about that situation initially, before they kind of resolved everything? But what was your reaction?
So initially I was pissed off. I was mad as hell for Jade. Because it was complete bullshit. Because like the sales associate told her that she couldn't have her backpack in the store. It was store policy. But Jade noticed that there was other customers in the store that had their purses. And then I also felt like Sam was really dismissive of the situation. Like she didn't even give Jade a chance to fully explain her perspective and what she felt of the situation. But on the flip side, as a person who's like close friends with white, like I have a really close white friend, I think sometimes they're unfortunately oblivious to those types of things. Like they don't know or see that those things are actually a reality for us. So sometimes they just aren't aware of how to handle it. So I kind of felt both sides, but at the same time, I feel like even if Sam has never had that experience, doesn't know what it feels like to be a black woman and being profiled, I think she should have been more sympathetic to the fact that Jade felt that way. She could have simply said, "Hey, I'm sorry that you felt that way. That's not what I saw, but I definitely, wouldn't want you to feel that way," or whatever the case may be, instead of completely kind of dismissing it as, "Oh no, you're just making that up. That didn't happen." Like, no, this is what happened.
Yeah, initially I had the same reaction with that scene. I was like, Sam is really brushing her off, not even trying to understand the situation. Because I do agree that, sometimes white people just don't know and they just don't understand. But if that is your friend, I feel like you should take the time to listen to me and try to gain some understanding in that situation. And Sam just was not trying to do that at all. I had written her off, and I was like, whatever, bump her, forget her. She needed to apologize to Jade, not the other way around.
I agree completely.
Our next scene, so there is a discussion of a young girl. Was she raped in the story?
No, she was beaten by the police.
Okay, yeah, okay, there we go. Some police brutality towards an African American woman, or a young lady in the story, and this really triggered a lot of things in the novel. Which I will say, on another note, this novel was not very problematic in the sense of Jade. Like, there was no big issue with her, but this story, this plot situation where the young girl was brutalized by police really was a pivotal moment for Jade, because this situation made her realize that oftentimes women are viewed as, you need to be safe, you need to be careful, but nobody's talking to the men or the young boys and saying, don't beat women, don't rape women, don't do this. And this opportunity allowed Jade to really piece herself together to see, okay, this is what's going on in my community. I need to take some action. I need to do something. And I was very appreciative of the fact that Jade was, she was willing to take that initiative and wanted to do something in her community and bring attention, and to not just let this story of this young girl passing be just another Twitter hashtag, to, make something out of it, to bring attention to what's going on in her community.
No, I agree completely. And I think when Jade was able to get with Lily and they put together the program together, I think it was really big and important. Like I said in the beginning, like, the story was just kind of, it read like a story. There were no really big issues, no real problematic situations. But when this situation happened, you got to see a different side of Jade. I think you got to see her come outside of herself, and it also helped her to kind of mend her relationship with Sam, and not necessarily that her relationship with Lily needed mending, but it was able for them to kind of solidify their relationship, as well as for her to kind of see the beauty that she thought she saw before in her community, but now it was definitely personified, and she had that confirmation that her community was truly a beautiful community.
Yeah.
And also the poem that Lily wrote, I highlighted the whole thing because I thought that thing was dope.
You want to read it?
I'm not gonna read the whole thing, but I'm gonna read a little bit. So, okay. Black Girls Rising by Lily Simmons. Our black bodies sacred, our black bodies holy, our bodies our own. Every smile a protest, each laugh a miracle. Piece by piece, we stitch ourselves back together. This black girl tapestry, this black body that gets dragged over our school desk, slammed on the linoleum floor, tossed at the poolside, pulled together, pushed into grass, arrested never to return home, shot on doorsteps, on sofas while sleeping, and dreaming of the next day. So first of all, that was deep. Especially in the beginning, like where we're talking about how our bodies are our own, because as everybody knows, as Nakia pointed out before we started recording, 300 years ago was the anniversary of slavery. 400 years ago was the anniversary of slavery. So we've only owned our bodies ourselves for 400 years. That's crazy. And also each smile of protest, because we know how many black girls have been told that we need to smile more, and how we just need to smile more. And then each laugh a miracle, because it is important for laughter. And sometimes you feel like you don't have the ability to laugh. Like, side note, y'all know I get on tangents. So side note, like this whole chicken sandwich debate, was, first of all, I had no problem with it. Like, let's people talk about the chicken sandwiches. But what was getting me was Black people not allowing Black people to have their moment of joy. Like, if we want to be happy and just talk about chicken sandwich and crack jokes about chicken sandwiches, that's fine. Let us allow us that moment. It did not have to turn into a political conversation where people were talking about how if only Black people would stand in line to vote like they did for a Popeye's chicken sandwich. First of all, Black people turn out in droves when it's time to vote, turned away because of voter suppression. Okay. And
I just feel like that's another podcast for another day.
Right. Okay, we can get into that. And then also, like she said, piece by piece, we stitch ourselves back together because we're constantly being torn down. We're constantly being told by society. Like me and Kia talked about earlier in the podcast about how stereotypes and we feel like we have to be code switching, be mindful of these things, that we're constantly having to pull ourselves together to create this image to the outward world where we're not able to fully just be ourselves. Right. And I think it's very important for us Black girls to just be happy, man. Just rise, be lit. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Like I have a quote to like tie into what you're saying to that poem. It's from Jade, and she says, "Sometimes I just want to be comfortable in this skin, this body. Want to cock my head back and laugh loud and free. All my teeth showing and not be told I'm too rowdy, too ghetto. Sometimes I just want to go to school wearing my hair big like cumulus clouds without getting any special attention, without having to explain why it looks different from the day before, why it might look different tomorrow. Sometimes I just want to let my tongue speak the way it pleases. Let it be untamed and not bound by rules. Want to talk without watchful ears listening to judge me." Like that just ties into Lily's poem, what Jazz just said, and what we said earlier about Black women and about Black people in general just having to police our behaviors because we're so worried about being judged by other people. But you know what I say? Fuck that shit.
Fuck that shit. Okay. Like basically, like at the same time, like I get it. Like we're always being like the whole. I was using the chicken sandwich war as an example, but it's because everyone was constantly concerned about how we look to the white man, how we look to the man. Who the fuck cares how we look to the man? At what point are we gonna stop caring about how we look to the white man and just worry about ourselves and build up our community as ourselves? Because at the same, like, stop trying to get a seat at their table and let's just build our own damn table. Okay, like,
you not afraid to hear Pastor Jam?
Thank you for coming to the Church of Black Girl Lit. No, seriously, like it's not even just for women of color, but just in general. Stop trying to get a seat at the table of white men, white women. Stop trying to sit at that table. Yeah. Build your own table, boo. We just need to build our own table. It's okay. When you go to a cafeteria, does the cafeteria only have one table? No, it's multiple tables. Okay. It's multiple tables. So let's have multiple tables in this cafeteria of life.
I'm about to shout in here. Jazz is free. And we're going to end that segment just like that. Beautiful. All right, y'all. So this is episode 2. We still don't have no sips.
Okay, while she sips, just for pure transparency, it's because we're recording right after the first video. So, I don't want you guys to say that we don't have any fans or that we don't like you. It's just that we immediately recorded after the first video.
We're batch recording, okay? Okay. Gosh, that's spilling the tea, spilling the drink.
People to think that we were mad at them and that we didn't fuck with them. I just wanted to keep it real with them. You know what I'm saying? It's full transparency.
Yes. So we don't have any tips yet.
Yes. But once we drop these gems, y'all will give us all the tips.
Yes. Okay. So tips is a segment for us to include some comments, questions, anything from our listeners. So you all can submit them on Instagram. You can even send us little video recording sound bites. I'll put our email in the show notes so you can like email that there, record on your iPhone, send it to us, and we can include it in the episode. I've been drinking. Okay.
Watermelon.
Actually, it's raspberry lemonade with a little bird dog.
Okay.
But yeah, so we want to include you all, like make this a participatory, engaging type situation for the podcast.
Engagement. We are looking for that engagement.
She just got really close to her microphone so y'all can hear that. Yes. I don't think I have any sips for this book because we just been dropping gems all episode long.
Right. All my sips already been sipped.
Right. Okay. The sips is gone, boo-boo. We done had a whole drink. So now it's time for your favorite segment where we rate that book. Rated. So our rating system goes like this, Lit Set. So first we have Sober, which means that book was basically whack. We didn't take a sip of nothing. Okay. We are sober, dry as the Sahara. Then we have Buzz, which means, okay, I got a little taste. I like it. I'm good. I can work with this. Then we have Tipsy, which is like, okay, all right, I'm feeling it. You vibing out at the party. And then you have Lit. You got your tongue out and you like, Like, this book is just top notch, top tier. All right, so this is my book. So I guess I'll rate first. I'm going to give this book a...
Pause for dramatic effect.
Lit! Y'all already knew that from my reaction at the beginning. This book was just beautifully written. I like the topics. And like I said, I like the fact that there wasn't like a heavily involved deep issue that we needed to uncover about Jade. It was just like this girl living her life and just discovering some things about herself and just piecing herself together. And then also discovering some things about her community. Like, that was just dope. So this book is lit. And from Nikea, it is Black Girl Lit approved.
Ooh, yes, Black Girl Lit approved. My turn. All right, so Nikea about to get a little mad at me because she doesn't like it when we just...
Oh shit, cut off the podcast. We done. That's it. Follow us, subscribe, download, rate, review on iTunes.
But I didn't even say that my rating was actually lit.
Yeah, you a sucker. You a sucker for that one.
So yeah, so I definitely felt like this book was definitely lit. Like I said in the beginning, I love that the book was just read like a story. We open the blinds, I get a glimpse into Jade's life. There was no yes, there was a climactic situation, but there was no huge climactic situation where she was really dealing with a lot of things. She wasn't super conflicted. Like, it was just a really good story to read. And sometimes you just want to read to see, oh, how is this person doing? And that's how I felt. I was like, I got to check in on Jade to see how she was doing, how things were going in her life. And I just really appreciate it. It was very beautifully written. It touched on some really heavy topics. I just really, really enjoyed it. And also she had a character in there named Lenora, and that's my middle name. So
yes, and there was a character named EJ, which is Bae, soon to be husband. Okay, all right, y'all. So I guess this book is just overall lit, and it is Black Girl Lit approved. Renee, we love you, girl. We love you. Okay. Y'all, that is it for today's podcast. Thank you so much for listening. But before we go, I want to let you know about the next two books that we'll be reading for October. We're going to be reading The Erotic Stories for Punjabi Widows by Bali Kaur Jaswal. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. That is Jazz's pick. And then we're going to be reading Queenie by Candace Carty Williams. So if you want to join in the conversation, you want to send us some SIPs, which is questions, comments, feedback, concerns, whatever, you know, these are the books that we are reading. So we want you to join in with us and read as we read, okay? Black Girl Lit together, all right?
Yes.
But make sure...
engagement.
And make sure that you subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes. That would really help us out. We're trying to get Black Girl Lit to the top, okay?
Yes.
Jazz, you have any parting words for our listeners?
I just want to thank you guys for coming over and listening to the podcast and supporting us on this transition and this journey as we share that Black Girl Lit literature.
And that's it for today. And as always, stay Black Girl Lit.